Chapter 3, Monday, June 29. See this map, which shows positions around dawn on June 29. See South Mountain here, Gettysburg here, and the Potomac down in the lower left. The Union Army was concentrated around Frederick with the 3 cavalry divisions to the front, and you may recognize 2 of the names, Buford and Gregg, veteran cavalry division commanders. But there's a new name, Brigadier General Hugh Judson Kilpatrick. Kilpatrick replaced Major General Julius Stahel on June 28. The Confederate Army was concentrated around Chambersburg, with Ewell's Corps moving toward the Susquehanna. Stuart's division was to the southeast. As I said in Chapter 2, late on the night before, the 28th, General Lee sent a courier off to General Ewell, telling him the Army was consolidating and to bring his corps back to Chambersburg, here, west of South Mountain. Then overnight, Lee had second thoughts. It's as if he remembered why Early's division was sent to York. Lee wrote in his report to President Davis in late July, after the campaign ended, that Early's division was sent east to keep the Federal Army on the east side of the mountains, and thus leave open our communications with the Potomac through Hagerstown and Williamsport, unquote. See this recording of the movements of the Army of Northern Virginia on June 29, running in a loop. The message Lee sent on the night of the 28th told Ewell to return to Chambersburg, here, west side of the mountain. Ewell's corps was sent east toward the Susquehanna, in part to lure the enemy that way. As I said, Lee must have had second thoughts. He decided Ewell's corps would stay on the east side of South Mountain. New orders were sent to General Ewell. See a copy of those orders here, copied from the official records. Paraphrasing the new order, go toward Gettysburg and stay on the east side of the mountains. You may notice that the date is recorded as June 28, which is wrong. This second order was written early on the 29th. And Coddington discusses this in his book, and Stephen Sears in his book Gettysburg wrote that Ewell received this new order at Carlisle late in the day on June 29. But Johnson's division left Carlisle before Ewell got the second order. Johnson's division marched to Chambersburg on the 29th. Johnson's division had camped on the west side of Carlisle, closer to Chambersburg, so maybe that's why they were sent back first, before the new order was received. Johnson's division escorted the Corps wagon train back to Chambersburg. The other 2 divisions in Ewell's Corps, Rhodes at Carlisle and Early at York, would converge toward Gettysburg on the next day, the 30th. Maybe sending Johnson to Chambersburg was just a brief bauble. You tell me. More on that in a moment. See that Hill's Corps continued moving east on the 29th. Lee, in his late July report, went on to explain that the 2 corps, commanded by Generals Longstreet and Hill, were ordered east across the mountain to Gettysburg, and that Ewell, up to the northeast at Carlisle with his corps, was ordered to also march to Gettysburg. Longstreet and Hill were directed to proceed from Chambersburg to Gettysburg, to which point General Ewell was also instructed to march from Carlisle, unquote. In Lee's telling, following the news he got on the night of the 28th, all 3 corps were ordered to Gettysburg. See again the dawn positions map for June 29. That morning there were 6 divisions west of South Mountain, 6 of the total 9 infantry divisions in Lee's army. But remember Johnson's division. They moved back west to Chambersburg on the 29th, and then Heath's division from Hill's Corps crossed east to Cashtown, so the net effect of Confederate movements on the 29th was 0. 1 division moved east, 1 moved west, except that Ewell's wagon train was moved to Chambersburg. And maybe that was why Johnson was sent to Chambersburg. Johnson was escorting the wagon train to safety. Maybe. I just said a moment ago that Johnson was sent because they were camped on that side of Carlisle, so it made sense to send them first. Am I confusing you? Was Johnson sent to Chambersburg on the 29th to consolidate there, or was he just an escort for the wagon train? Because there were no reliable cavalry units available as escort. I looked at the reports from Generals Ewell and Johnson and did not see an answer. Johnson went to Chambersburg, Heath went east to Cashtown. And see this org chart. The West Side divisions, at the end of June 29, are in red. 1 division from Ewell's Corps, 2 divisions from Hill's Corps, all 3 divisions from Longstreet's Corps. These divisions in red are the ones that will need to cross over to the Gettysburg side. Stephen Sears in his book Gettysburg wrote, having some 2/3 of his army crowded onto the Chambersburg pike, and in considerable disorder, did not seem to bother General Lee, unquote. Movement to the east on the 29th was leisurely. On the 29th, only 1 division crossed east to Cashtown, Heath's division from Hill's Corps. Coddington wrote that Lee was waving his hat vigorously so the Union commander could find him, but that Lee himself had only a vague idea where the Union army was. Lee knew more now on the 29th, but the information was still not accurate. On the 29th, there were no Confederate cavalry scouting to find the enemy. Stuart, of course, right now was occupied with his raid off to the east, but Robertson and Jones's cavalry brigades were available, and Major John Mosby's cavalry battalion. As I said in Chapter 2, Robertson and Jones were ordered to guard the Blue Ridge gaps and observe and report. See this map that shows where their brigades were placed. But as Sears wrote, the entire Army of the Potomac crossed the Potomac without Beverly Robertson being the wiser. Fast approaching a probable collision with the enemy, Lee was figuratively blindfolded, unquote. General Meade was on his 2nd day as commander of the Army of the Potomac. See this recording in a loop of the movements of Meade's army on June 29. Scott Mingus, in his book, If We Are Striking for Pennsylvania, quoted a soldier writing long after the war, General Hooker was relieved from command and General George G. Meade was placed at the head of the army. He apparently had a well-defined idea of what he wanted the army to do. It was to get into Pennsylvania at the earliest possible date and fight the rebel army wherever we struck them, unquote. General Meade had orders for the 29th out at the end of the day on the 28th. June 29 was Meade's 2nd day in command. As Stephen Sears described it, the Army of the Potomac would press northward from the Frederick area in a fan-shaped advance toward the Pennsylvania line, unquote. The Pennsylvania line is the straight east-west line here. Also on June 29, General Pleasonton, the Cavalry Corps commander, ordered Buford's cavalry division to Gettysburg. See this map, which shows unit movements on the 29th. The arrows don't show paths, they're straight lines that connect start points with end points. The black lines are Confederate infantry. See Heath's division going east across the pass and Johnson's division sent back to Chambersburg with Ewell's wagon train. The green line on the right is Stuart's cavalry division. The red lines are Federal infantry. And see that Meade, pushing north away from Frederick, was extending his flanks left and right, but the overall tendency was for his army to lean to the northeast. Meade's right flank was now at Westminster. Lee feinted toward the east, and Meade, faithfully covering all the bases, was guarding against a Confederate move around his right flank toward Baltimore. Blue lines are Federal cavalry units, and see that Meade put the cavalry out front. The cavalry were out looking for Lee's army, while also trying to guard against Lee slipping around Meade's flanks. See here part of a message from General Meade, time-stamped 11 a.m. on June 29 to his boss, General Halleck. This is from the official records. Note especially the highlighted text. I shall incline to the right, toward the Baltimore and Harrisburg Road, to cover that. My main objective point being, of course, Lee's army, unquote. There's a note in Coddington about this message. It says it was sent by courier because Stuart's cavalry had cut the telegraph lines. Let's see what happened with Stuart. See this recording from my animated map covering Lee's raid. Let's start late on June 27. The little U.S. flag here is Meade's headquarters near Frederick. Stuart is down here, just crossing the Potomac, heading north. Washington, D.C. is down here in the southeast corner. General Early's division, approaching York, is up here, and the rest of Ewell's corps is off-screen to the north. So start the animation and see Stuart go riding north between Meade's army and Union Army headquarters at Washington, D.C. The telegraph line between Union headquarters in Washington, D.C. and Meade's headquarters at Frederick followed the railroad and the road. The highway was the national road. The railroad was the Baltimore and Ohio. Stuart's cavalry crossed through on the 29th, and they cut the telegraph. So until the line was fixed, Meade relied on couriers riding a relay route between Baltimore and Frederick, about 45 miles. And look back at that June 29 message from Meade to Halleck. See the note at the top? Is it possible that some messages didn't get through? Sears wrote, "The one important disruption Stuart achieved, perhaps the one real achievement of his raid, was to cut off Meade's telegraphic connections with Washington during the 29th and part of the 30th." Unquote. General Ewell on the 29th started countermarching his corps to the southwest. Meanwhile, Meade was moving northeast, protecting his right flank against a threat that was ending. See this animation that shows Johnson's division moving southwest, Heath's division moving east, and Union infantry moving northeast. Next, Chapter 4, June 30.